It's time for Watts on Wealth Radio with Barry Watts and your host, Ralph Hipp.
Welcome in. Gosh and golly, it's our first episode of Watts on Wealth, the radio show for this new year. I'm your host, former KSPR News Team 33 anchorman Ralph Hipp, along with the real star of our show, retirement and tax expert Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. Many things will be changing in 2026, and we're going to talk about some of those today, how you can adjust and be ready for the financial and retirement realities of this new year. First of all, let's get our expert into the conversation. And 2026, hello, Barry. How are you, sir? How's the new year starting for you?
Hey, Ralph, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, friends.
And, you know, I didn't think, or I would have brought some of those noisemakers, you know, whee, rattle, 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 clank, clank, clank. But
they're imagining
so
that.
I'm just going to say, Happy New Year to you, Ralph, and to all of our regular listeners to Watts on Wealth and to our viewers, because we actually have today's show going semi-live on the World Wide Web. I'm not sure somehow, but I know the camera is here waving at me, and that's a good thing.
Where they can see you, and I guess they can see you and hear me. So, Barry, what's going on? What are the headlines for you?
You know, I was just thinking, Ralph, about the fact 2026. Whoever thought I'd still be doing this in 2026? I used to tell people that I wanted to retire at age 55. And here I am 62, and I'm nowhere near retiring. And so, in fact, the current plan I was just going over with my team the other day is that I would retire in 10 more years, or when we get to $3 billion in client retirement assets under advisement. And we haven't quite hit the $500 million mark yet, so we got a little room to go there.
Okay.
So it's just I'm just kind of surprised to still be here, I guess, is what I'm saying. This is the beginning of my 33rd year helping people to take the exit ramp from working and step into the new world of living as retirees. And I'm just kind of excited and shocked and surprised. And, it's amazing when you just put your head down and go to work, how you wake up one day and you've been doing it for 33 years.
How about that? The time just goes by, doesn't it? And to give you some semblance of the significance, I'm using some big words here. That is a third of a century, Barry. 1/3 of a century you've been doing this.
How about this, Ralph? It's a generation. A generation is 30 years.
It is. And plus.
And the interesting thing, if you'll think about our practice here, is we have a multi-generational practice because the new guys who are often on the show with us, Jeremy and Matt, are of a different generation. They are my children's age. So you and I are the same generation. You're the older brother in the generation. I'm the younger brother. I'll point out that you're older, Ralph, by about 10 years or so. But these guys are 25 years younger. No, 35 years younger.
It's crazy. And enjoy a lot working with them, too, working with you and working with Matt and Jeremy.
They're doing
and
a good job.
Yeah.
Good job on the radio, doing a good job on video.
Sure.
They're on a lot of the stuff that we've got out on YouTube on Watts on Wealth is actually Jeremy and Matt. I had a client the other day just tell me how much he enjoyed hearing them on the radio show. He'd been listening.
Yeah.
And they're doing a great job sitting with our clients in the conference room. And they've really come a long, long way. And I'm just putting final tune-up details on them. Those guys are doing great, great work. I'm really proud to have Matt and Jeremy on the team. Wish I'd have brought them in a long time, and it hadn't taken 32 years to get there. But in year 33, here we are.
That's right. And this is the year 2025 was the year that we brought them into the fold and introduced them to our radio fans. But I want to say hi to, if you're listening in Joplin, 2025 was our year we came on for you out there at your station, early Sunday morning. Well, in your 33 years, this third of a century, Barry, what do you think has changed? How's it different? Maybe how is it the same? What have you learned? How should people think about sitting with a wizened senior executive and a tax expert like yourself? How is that different sitting with the newly minted stockbroker out of the big St. Louis firm that they call an investment representative now? How are you different from them, and how are things changing?
Well, that's an interesting question, Ralph.
I got a lot of questions in there.
And I'm just thinking about that. First of all, longevity has changed. We used to plan people into their early 70s and more or less tell them if you live longer than that, it's your own fault. And so today we're routinely planning people to age 100. And on a broadcast a couple of weeks ago, I talked about sitting with Peter Diamandis and him telling us that they had the technology almost ready to deploy to nearly double lifespan. They're doing
remember that
studies
story
on it now. It would add 15 or 20 years. So longevity is a huge thing. Back when I first started 33 years ago, mutual funds were the rage. That's what everybody invested in was mutual funds. Today, mutual funds are very old technology. They'll never go away, but the only people who will wind up using them are the people who don't know any better, because they tend to be expensive and a little bit clunky. I think back 33 years ago, here's one for you, Ralph. I was brand new in those days. In those days, money market accounts were paying 8%. And you could actually buy a U.S. government treasury bond paying 8%. Good for 30 years. It would have just matured about 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. Holy smoke. I had no idea, because I was one of those young guys in those days. I had no idea how good U.S. government treasury money at 8% was, or else we would have loaded everybody up on kind of nothing but that. That would have been fabulous if we could have achieved that in that particular day and time. Technology certainly changed. Ralph, today, we manage money based on supply and demand. We can peer into the markets and see whether the markets are in supply and demand, whether a particular investment, a particular stock is in supply or demand, and we can pivot based on that. So man, there's just been a tremendous amount of things that have changed in that way. And as it's all changed, I've learned some things. Probably the biggest thing I've learned, Ralph, is this: if you don't get the taxes right, nothing else matters. And, when I first started, I didn't know anything about taxes. We used to tell them, oh, go ask your CPA. I don't know. And it wasn't until I got tired of seeing people with that sad look on their face, because we kept telling them to go see your CPA, that I said, okay, Barry, you got to fix this. You've got to get to be a guy who knows tax. And so I went back to school, did all the schooling, and became really qualified to be a tax strategist and to represent people before the IRS. And taxes are the much, 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 much bigger part of the story. And now we help our clients. We take responsibility for helping them with the tax. In fact, I had something interesting happen, Ralph. Right back before Christmas, I got a call from one of our clients who said, hey, Barry, we got some capital gains we need to deal with. And I said, no, we don't. And the reason that we didn't is because generally the strategies that we bring to the table to fix things, that kind of strategy required about $100,000. And I said, you've only got about $20,000 worth of capital gains that need to be cured. And so he's like, well, I hate to pay the tax on the $20,000. He was really disappointed. And I just let it lay on my desk a couple of days, and I got to thinking, what if I looked at it a different way? Here's what I discovered. In his particular case, in the last 6 months of 2025, he had experienced $52,000 in capital gain. And we were able to neutralize all the tax on that $52,000 in capital gains. And then in the first 6 months of 2025, he had experienced $32,000 in capital losses. So you see, you take 52 and 32, subtract them out, you get 20. That's why I told him he only had $20,000 worth of gains for the tax year, which was true. But when we separated them into two piles, we could take control of those gains and neutralize them, and we saved all the losses. And here's why that's important. Next year, we'll use those losses against the first $32,000 worth of capital gains, so we get a free ride next year. So I was pretty excited about that, and being able to just bring that to his attention. I thought it really mattered in a significant way. So, you ask a question, how is working with the old man different than the fresh-faced stockbroker? Well, let me say, first of all, I'm not mocking the young men, because I was one once. I remember so much how I wanted to have just a little bit of gray hair. So, just one here or there, just so people would quit saying, well, you're so young. How could you know anything?
Just that dash of experience that you want to show them.
Yeah. And then when it got a little salt and pepper, okay, now I'm really getting there. And then I woke up overnight and my hair is totally gray. So when I was still in my 30s, I had a guy I was talking to who thought I was retired because I was gray-headed. Now, maybe he wasn't very smart. You ought to be able to realize the guy's 30 years old. But anyway, Ralph, we've surrounded ourselves by really young people. Our team here is 30 and under. In terms of the guys who are helping our clients, and Jeremy and Matt are both in that category. And so these young guys who sit less than 20 feet from me all day long, I'm teaching them every week. I'm going over every case with them. We're studying everyone in detail. In fact, this week, the last case we looked at, we determined we were going to have to call the guy and say, we can't help you, because his situation was so precarious. The patient was in such difficult health that not health-wise, but health financially wise. Maybe that means he was in difficult wealth. I don't know. But anyway, he was in such difficult wealth health that we couldn't help him. And ultimately, I had to say to the guys, no, you're right. We can't fix this. You need to call the guy and tell him not to come in for his evaluation, because we can't make it better for him. And so anyway, I'm teaching them every week. We're meeting about those kinds of things. And so I want you to know that when you come to WealthCare and you deal with a young guy, Well, I'm actually the old guy who's calling the shots and equipping the young guys to do the work and have the conversations. And frequently I wind up in those rooms discussing things myself. And so here's what I want people to know. Been doing this 33 years. Sometimes I run into people who you can tell their vibe. Sometimes they'll even say it. They'll say, well, I don't know if I can trust you or not. Oh, for Pete's sake. I work in the world's most highly regulated industry. We have government agents from the Securities and Exchange Commission in our office regularly auditing our books and records. And I just got to tell you, if there's a problem, it would have come out. And so what I want people to understand, Ralph, at the end of 33 years, the beginning of the 33rd year, at the end of 32 years, I want people to understand that we only want what's best for them. We're only going to do what works for them. Core value number one at the Wealth Care Corporation, it's about the people who are depending on us. And my team and I, and none of us are perfect. We make mistakes. We zig, we should zag sometimes, and some things like that. But we're going to move heaven and earth for our clients, and we're going to make it work. And, an interesting thing, Ralph, that we'll do that most other firms won't, we'll even let you talk with our existing clients about their experience. In fact, my mother told me a little story. She'd had somebody approach her at church on Sunday. They go to a different church than I do.
Okay.
But that lady knew my parents, and she knew me, of course, because they're our clients. And she had gone to Mom, and she said, Barry's so nice to me. She said, I want to do something special for him. I was wondering what kind of candy does he like, or should I bake him some cookies or some bread or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Mom, ever the practical one said, why don't you just write him a note? So I'm like, gee, thanks, Mom. Candy might have worked. But
or the cookies. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been fine too. But the point is, we really love our clients. We bend over backwards to take care of them. And I just want you to know, when you come in and sit down with us, you don't have to be scared, because there's nothing to be afraid of. We're going to make it better if it can be made better. And in most cases, it can be improved significantly. And we love helping people discover that.
Well, to make things better in 2026 and have that conversation, meet the amazing J. Barry Watts. Give him a phone call. You can call right now, text the word visit, or leave a message. Barry's number is 417 all around Springfield, 417-200-3500, 200-3500, as you were listening to some of his wisdom on Watts on Wealth. This is his radio sidekick, his host, Ralph Hipp, and with Barry Watts and Matt and Jeremy. Hope you're having a good holiday, and be back with us soon. Time for a break here on Watts on Wealth, and we'll continue our conversation with Barry in just a moment.
Explore how Barry Watts can support your financial aspirations. Set a consultation by texting VISIT to 417-200-3500. Discover the possibilities at 417-200-3500 with a simple VISIT text.
Do you think you'll pay lower taxes in retirement? Really? Many people go into retirement assuming that, but end up paying as much, if not more, in taxes than when they were working. How taxes can affect your retirement is one of the chapters in Watts on Wealth, the latest book written by local tax strategist and retirement designer Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. Barry takes you through the many tax considerations you should make before you retire. To get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, call 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. The book is full of actionable retirement tips and strategies Barry has gathered from his more than 30-year career in helping families just like yours retire successfully. Get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, now by calling 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. Advisory services provided through WealthCare Asset Management, LLC.
For a more confident retirement journey, get Barry Watts' Wealth Care Kit. Discover strategies addressing life's biggest retirement obstacles. Request yours by texting KIT to 417-200-3500. Again, that's KIT to 417-200-3500.
Welcome back in. The radio show is Watts on Wealth every Sunday right here. Barry, we're talking about every year things change. My goodness, what a year 2025 has been. So 2026, we have some changes on the way. What'll be different for us?
Well, there are several things that are going to change this year, Ralph. Why don't we start by talking about your IRA and your 401k plans?
Okay.
Because what you can contribute to those is going to change, has changed now that we're in 2026. For example, in your IRA, this year you can put in $500 more than you could put in last year. Last year you could only put in $7,000. This year you can put in $7,500 into your IRA. And if you're over 50 years old, you can add an extra $1,100 to that. So $8,600 is the maximum amount that you can put into your IRA, either a traditional or a Roth, and my preference is the Roth, of course. So you got a lot more money you could put in there, and I would encourage you to be taking care and maximizing that opportunity. Now, the question is, when, Ralph, should you make those contributions? Now, here's a little trick I bet you haven't thought of, but it'll be very helpful. When do most people make their IRA contributions? Do you have any idea, Ralph?
Gosh, I wonder if it's before tax time or before the end of the year, before April 15th.
Yeah, your taxes are due April 15th. And so people make their IRA contribution on April 14th. That's kind of what happens. So for 2000, so for example, 2026 last year, you don't have to make your IRA contribution, or I should say you can make your IRA contribution as late as April 15th. Of 2026. So your 25 year, you can still contribute all the way to 26. But you could have contributed on January 2nd of last year. So today, here we are at January 4, tomorrow's January 5. My suggestion would be that you need to make your annual IRA contribution tomorrow. You need to make it as soon as possible, the very first day of the year. And here's why. People say, why? What difference would that make? Here's what difference it makes. If you make it today, instead of waiting until next April of 27, it gives you, what is that, 14 or 15 months difference? I believe it's 15 months. That's 15 more months of compounding on every contribution that you make. And that 15 months, I've never seen the math. It would be a pretty big equation, actually. But that 15 months of compounding on your IRA account will be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars when you get to the end of your retirement lifetime. And so that's the biggest tip you're going to get today right there, is that you ought to make your IRA contribution as soon as you can, January 1st, essentially, instead of waiting until April 15th a year later. And you know why people wait, Ralph? It's because taxes are driving their behavior. And it's taxes that's triggering I got to make my IRA contribution. And for years, I didn't make mine till April because I didn't know about that. I hadn't thought through that. People don't think about this stuff. Well, I think that it's a good thing if tax drives behavior, but personally, I think tax-free should drive behavior. And so a step further is not only should you make that contribution the very first day you can, but I think you ought to make it to a Roth account, because taxes are going to go higher. And so you need to be prepared to take care of that. So that's a little riff on how the IRA works. Let's talk about 401ks. So, Ralph, your 401k contribution limit this year, the max you can put in is $24,500. It's $1,000 more than the previous year. But then there's a catch-up for people who are over 50 years old. And the catch-up folks can put in an extra $8,000. So that takes them up to $32,500. Now, here's a really interesting thing that's happened. Because of a change in the law, if you are 60, 61, 62, or 63, you can put in an additional $11,250. So instead of being stuck at $32,500, now we're at $33,500, $34,500, $34,750. No, I did that math wrong. Let's back up and do it again.
Back it up.
Yeah. This is what I get for talking and trying to do math in my head at the same time. So let's see. 24,500 is your base, plus 8 puts you at 32,500. If you put in an extra 11,250, you could put in 32,500, 42,500, 43,500, 43,750. There it is. So you can put in $43,750 into your 401k. And the other thing I would encourage you to do is if you can do it, I would change your 401k contribution and make all your contributions, defer 100% of your salary in the early part of the year. Again, so you're getting that extra several months worth of compounding. Now, most people can't do that, but there are people who, we live out of my wife's salary. I could put all mine into the 401k if they let me. Well, I'm telling you, why don't you put all of it in there for the first several months talk to your plan representative about that and see if they'll help you with that, because if they would allow you to do that and get it all funded earlier, that would be really, really helpful. Now, here's a little piece of information for you. Some plans have a provision that allow you to contribute not that $43,000 number we were talking about, but you can go all the way to $72,000. And so imagine if you could put $72,000 away for retirement, and you do that 10 years in a row, dude, you've put $700,000 in plus the growth you get on that. Suddenly you're a millionaire. You're a 401k millionaire right there. And so what I would encourage you to do is just pay attention. This is, it's kind of annoying stuff. You're busy going to soccer games and mowing the yard and petting the dog and whatever else you do. But if you pay attention to this stuff, there is hundreds of thousands of dollars in the nuance of how you handle it. And so I really want to encourage you to pay attention and make these contributions earlier and make them in the right way, in the right dollar amounts.
Right. Friends, as you're listening to Barry, how would you like him to talk with you face-to-face about your situation, to put his brain power to work for you? The wisdom of Watts at 417-200-3500 to get the conversation started. Rewinding to what you said earlier, Barry, on the 401ks, we can do the catch-up contribution and the 11-250?
That's exactly right.
Wow. All that, which you probably, you did not know about that. So, yeah.
But the 11-250 is limited to people who are 60, 61, 62, or 63 years old.
Yes.
So
Barry's
you can't do it, Ralph. Sorry.
I'm out, but Barry's in that category.
I'm in. I'm right in the middle of it. You're exactly right.
He's probably doing it. Well, adding in the big, beautiful bill, which was signed on the 4th of July, what's coming up new with, let's say, Medicare and Social Security in 2026 in our changing landscape?
Great question. Let's talk about Social Security. You're going to get a cost of living adjustment this year. You actually already have received it now. We're in the first of the year. And it's 2.8% cost of living. Now, here's some interesting things. Just about 10 days ago, we got the government's final cost of living number year over year, how much more it costs. And at the end of 2025, it cost 2.7% more to live than it did in 2024. So in this case, your cost of living adjustment is just a touch more than what the government says the actual increase in the cost of living or the inflation rate was. Now, Ralph, historically, that number has not been that high. It's been more in the range of 2.3%. And so when we're doing planning for our clients, we set their Social Security number in and then we inflate it to grow at 2.3%. Because that's historically been the number that people got in terms of a cost of living adjustment. If you're working, the amount of income that is subject to Social Security that you pay FICA tax on now has gone all the way up to $184,000, $84,500 actually, $184,500. And that's up about $8,000 from the previous year. Now, here's an interesting thing, Ralph. Some people say, well, I don't want to pay tax on the full $184,000. I'd like to pay tax on half that. And if you're a business owner, business owners, man, they get a good deal on lots of things. If you're a business owner, you actually can manage it that way and pay less of your income in FICA tax. And the way you do that is you have to be operating through an S corporation. Or a limited liability company that is an S corporation can work too, but you don't want to be operating as what's called a disregarded entity LLC. Because if you're that, and by the way, before I knew how this all worked, that's the way I did it till I learned. Then everything you make, if you're a disregarded entity LLC, you have to pay Social Security tax on. But if you're an S corp, you can actually set it to where a part of your income is your salary from the company. And you'll pay a Social Security tax on that. But the other part of your income is a distribution. And you don't pay Social Security taxes on distributions, or you might think of them as dividends. That's a little easier way to think about it. So there's a hot tip for anyone who's a business owner. We do help a lot of business owners, help them with tax strategy. In fact, about the biggest tax strategy that we put in place this year helped a business owner reduce income taxes. It helped him reduce income on his tax return by over $700,000. And that's going to be about 40%. So 4 sevens is that 28, Ralph? Yeah, I think it is. So about $280,000, almost $300,000 less tax paid.
Right.
Because of that particular strategy. Now let's talk about something, Ralph, that is down your alley, Medicare.
It is.
Because you're on Medicare. Well,
yeah, and we're a month into, you should have signed up a month ago. We're past the open sign up period, and here we go.
Yep, you're certainly past that time. And so if you were supposed to sign up and you didn't, now you're in a penalty phase. And shame on you for not doing it when you're supposed to do it. If you call Medicare Matt at our office, he will help you to navigate through that. But Ralph, for everybody who's on Medicare, here's what I want you to know. Premiums are increasing. The amount you pay is going up. And everybody pays for Medicare. And people think, well, when I get to be 65, I'll be on free government health care. No, you won't. You'll be on government health care that you pay for. It's not free. So, for example, everybody paid $185 last year in 2025. This year, everybody's going to pay $202.90. So that is a 9.6% increase in what you have to pay in premiums to be covered by Medicare. Now, Ralph, why? We just told you that inflation had gone up 2.7%. The cost of living adjustment for Social Security was 2.8%. And the cost for your Medicare premium is up 9.6%. Well, so
up we go.
Darn, you can't win for losing. But here's the deal. Here's what you got to realize. We've been teaching for years that the Medicare problem is 5 times larger than the Social Security problem. And there is the reflection in that right now. It's not an exact 5 times reflection, but you got a bump in your income of 2.7%, 2.8%. And you got a bump in your premiums of 9.6%, you're going backwards fast. And Ralph, the bigger problem that adds on top of that is if you're a high wage earner, you have got to pay a penalty for your Medicare, and that's called IRMA. Income Related Monthly Adjustment Amount is what that stands for. We call it Ugly Aunt Irma around here. And so they say it's a surcharge for high earners. Well, let's call it what it is. It's a penalty. So the interesting thing about that penalty is that the level where the penalty gets exercised has increased by about $3,000 per person. That's about a 9% cost you have to pay, and you only got to bump up your income by about 2.8% before that hits. And so your IRMA costs are outrageous. Now, people get mad at IRMA, and Ralph, here, I got to confess something. I cause people to pay more IRMA sometimes. And it's not because
they have to.
Well, it's not because we're better investors, though we are, in my opinion. It's because we're thinking about the taxes long term. And we're saying, if we will pay some more tax up front now and do those Roth conversions that we talk about and get all of that taxable income out of our way, what will happen then is you'll have to pay a lot more IRMA this year, next year, and maybe the next year. But in a matter of a few years, we'll get to the point where you don't have to pay any IRMA. And then you are glued into the lowest amount that you have to pay for Medicare, and your Social Security will not be taxable. So that's what's going on with Social Security and Medicare, and those are some adjustments that are being made that you should be aware of because they do impact you.
Hey, time for a break as Barry and I, our first show of the new year, we're talking over 2026 and what it'll mean for you. So this is Ralph Hipp with Barry Watts, and we'll return here with Watts on Wealth in just a couple of minutes. Don't go away.
Unsure of how market volatility might impact your investments? Speak with Barry Watts, who can offer strategies tailored to withstand market fluctuations. Just text VISIT to 417-200-3500 to meet with Barry Watts today. Again, text VISIT to 417-200-3500. Prepare for retirement with key insights from Barry Watts Wealth Care Kit. Get your essential guide by texting KIT to 417-200-3500 and start planning today. That's 417-200-3500, KIT.
Welcome back in. Barry's book is called Watts on Wealth, and over the holidays, which, golly, everybody's pretty much back to work this week. If you had some time over the holidays, or keep on reading, Watts on Wealth, the book, it's a dandy. And along with our radio and TV shows and reading, you'll be well-versed in some of Barry's knowledge, a very small tip of the iceberg of it, because, boy, he knows a lot, as you can tell from our radio show. So welcome back in. Barry's number is 417-200-3500, 200-3500, to have your own conversation with Barry and get a copy of Watts on Wealth, the book. All right, we mentioned April 15th and the contributions that we ought to make really this week before April 15th. But that regards tax filing, and what do we need to make note of on tax filing time, Barry? We're 3 months away from that now.
Well, Ralph, you have to be aware that when you go to file your taxes, everybody gets a deduction. You either get the itemized deduction or the standard deduction off of your income. So here's the way that works. Itemized deduction, not as many people get it anymore because they don't have enough to reach the threshold of $16,100 per person. But itemized deduction is where, you add up all of your real estate taxes, you add up your charitable gifts, you add up some healthcare costs that go in there, the interest that you pay on your home mortgage and or a second home, those can be included in there. And when you add all of that up, if that exceeds more than a certain threshold, then you itemize and you tell the government, here's how much I had in that category. And that goes on the Schedule A of your tax return. But most people don't have enough, so they use the standard deduction. And the standard deduction this year has increased to $1,100. Used to be $15,000. Now it's $16,100 per person, $32,200 per couple. So that means the first $16,000 or $32,000, you don't pay any tax on. No tax on that at all. That money comes to you tax-free. Now, if you're a senior citizen, you get an additional $6,000 deduction on top of that. So that puts you at what? $22,100. And that $6,000, by the way, that is the one big beautiful bill compensation for not giving you the Social Security tax-free thing that they talked about. And by the way, so you got shortchanged. Think about this for a moment, Ralph. If you're getting $2,000 a month, if that were tax-free, now that might be okay. But instead, they gave you a one-time $6,000 deduction. Well, you divide that by 12, that's $500 a month. So they took away the promised $2,000 per month, didn't deliver the promise, and then they gave you back $500 a month and said, didn't we bless you? Well, no, not as much as you promised me you would. So anyway, that hacks me off a little bit. So there's the answer to standard deduction. This year, you're going to get $16,100 or $32,200 that you don't have to pay any tax on, plus another $6,000 if you're a senior citizen. If you're making charitable deductions, everybody gets a $1,000 charitable deduction that they can, it's not itemization, it just goes on a line on your tax return. So it used to be that you couldn't count your deductions unless you were itemizing. Well, everybody's going to get $1,000 that they itemize. Or I'm sorry, it's not, let's see, how should I explain this? You don't have to itemize to get it. Just everybody can give up to $1,000 and they can take it off of their income. But if you're using a donor advised fund, that doesn't account, by the way. And one thing I just want to bring up to you is this idea of qualified charitable distributions. If you're giving to charity in significant amounts, you should be giving from your IRA. Think about it, Ralph. Let's say you're going to give $10,000. You could either take $10,000 out of your IRA, pay the tax on it, and put it in your pocket, and then you could put it in your bank, I guess, and then write a check to your church or wherever it is you're going to give charitably. Or you could just take the $10,000 and give it directly to the church and nobody from the IRA, and nobody would ever pay the tax. That's called a qualified charitable distribution. And that's why when we're converting Roth IRAs, in most cases, if we're dealing with someone who's charitable, we do not want them to take their IRA, their traditional IRA, all the way to zero. We want to leave some money in that IRA from which to do then all of your charitable giving going forward. And so that's a pretty exciting thing, I think. You can give up to, by the way, $111,000 per year in qualified charitable distributions.
That is a fantastic thing. We've mentioned a few times on the show, but just to pull it right out of that account, non-taxable.
Yeah, it's the only way to go. And everybody ought to do it. But people don't do it because it's complicated. I mean, all this stuff, thank you for staying with us if you've stayed this far, because I recognize that this is kind of like reading a college algebra textbook in some ways. All of this stuff just causes your brain to say, oh, please give me a break. My brain is there too. You know, Ralph, I used to try to memorize everything so you couldn't catch me in the grocery store and ask me a question that I didn't know the answer to. I had all these numbers in my brain, and I just realized the numbers change every year. Dude, I didn't get them memorized till they all changed, and I finally got to where I quit. And the answer is, some, but I don't know the exact number, and I'll look it up. And so that's the way we work anymore. We look that stuff up.
You know, the great thing, Barry, when you meet with your clients at 417-200-3500, they make the free call and that free initial visit. you can tailor it to, I'll tell you what you need to know. This is your particular situation. I don't have to go through the whole thing with you. Let's talk about your situation, how I can help you. And that's the great thing. You can just channel it to what they need, right?
So, Ralph, let me tell you kind of how that happens. We're holistic retirement planners, which means we do cover everything. You know, our 6 steps to retirement confidence starts at the base with, do you have enough income to be able to retire and have the income you want all the way to age 100? And then the next step up is, do you have enough protected income? Have you protected a portion of your principal so that the stock market can't hurt it? We're climbing a staircase now. The third step is taxes. Are you structuring yourself to be in the lowest tax bracket possible? For some people, that can be the 0% tax bracket. Or are you going to be a victim of higher taxes as those higher tax rates come in the years ahead? And I'm convinced that tax rates are going to double. The fourth thing that we deal with, so we're climbing the stair number 4 on the case, is long-term care. Do you have a plan to deal with long-term care and a strategy to be successful at that? Because we've got those strategies. If you don't have them, we can make them work. And the beautiful part is, it's not like the old long-term care insurance where if you didn't use it, then you lost it. When we set these things up, if you need them, they're there. But if you don't need them, then you can use that money for other things. Or if you die, that money can all go to your kids. And then finally, the 5th step on the 6 steps, notice the little oddity there, the 5th step on the 6th step. And I said, finally.
Yes.
All right. I'll get there in just a moment.
He's got more. He's got more.
Step
folks.
number 5 is estate planning and legacy planning. So we want to help people do the basic things. I had an executive from a hospital in just this week, and he's like, Barry, what do I need to do? And we looked at his situation, and he doesn't need to go spend a lot of money on wills and trust and all those sorts of things, because all he's got is his money, a couple of cars, and his house. And all of that can be moved to his children using either transfer on death or pay on death or beneficiary deeds very inexpensively. Instead of sending a house through probate, if you'll put a beneficiary deed on your house, and you can do that in Greene County for $185, all costs in. Actually, I should say it differently. You can have it done for you for $185. And so how much easier is that than sending the house through probate? Oh, my goodness. It's just ridiculous. So we talked with him about that. And we take people through all these steps. And then the very top step is what we call a strategy and tactics visit. Once a year, we come back and we go through each of the 5 steps. And so this particular hospital executive I was talking about, he came in. We were going to do a strategy and tactics visit. And at the end, he said, okay, what are we going to do about my estate? And we were able to show him that basically for no cost, he could get all of his estate in order where it needed to go. And then I asked him, at the hospital in your benefit package, do you have a legal benefits in your package? He said, we do. I said, I bet if you'll call them, they will write you a will just in case we've left anything out. The will would then cover that. So he got out, no cost for all of his estate planning. So if you're one of the estate planners who listens to the show, sorry, didn't mean to cause you to miss your boat payment there, but you're not going to get it from that client.
That's right. Barry, let's talk about affordability, what things cost. Toward the end of the year, President Trump painted a very rosy picture of the economy, but inflation's up a little bit, unemployment's up a little bit. But I was thinking of the days of President Hoover, President Roosevelt, when times were tough and nobody had the money to buy anything. There was still from the president a message of optimism that things will get better. But we've got $16 for a fast food combo. And as you said, do you want fries with that? That's what makes it $16 plus the burger. $19,500 to take a family vacation, maybe $65,000 for a new car. How do we get into 2026 and retirement planning if we're not able to pay for things that we may or may not need?
Well, Ralph, I think inflation is a serious problem for people, and they're going to have to deal with it. And what you might not be aware of is where those numbers come from. Those numbers were actually in an advertisement in a magazine from 1996. Oh. And it said in that magazine in 1996 that when you get to 2026, that Fast foods are going to cost $16 to have lunch, $19,000 for a family vacation, $65,000 for a new car.
Projections.
And so that was what they were projecting. And here's the point. Isn't it interesting how spot on they are? Because they hit the numbers probably pretty right on. And it's dangerous for us as retirees. If you have inflation of just 3% per year, and last year our inflation rate was 2.7. So if you have inflation of just 3% per year, then about every 25 years, your cost of living is going to double. If you live on $100,000 now, 25 years from now, it's going to take $200,000. Have you built that into your retirement plan? And have you seen it fleshed out year by year by year, how the expense line grows and how your income line has to grow, and does it work? And then when you realize it's going to cost a lot more to be living when I'm 90 than when I'm 60, remember what Peter Diamandis said, we're going to expand your lifespan by at least 10 or 15, maybe 20 years. Oh my goodness, we got more that we got to plan on. And so the way we plan for clients is we show them dying at age 100. And often when we do that, they die with maybe a few $1 million in their account, but that's not that much, because if that's 30 or 40 years away, that $1 million may only buy $250,000 worth of goods and services in today's pricing. So inflation's a big deal, and I think we have to pay attention to it, and you have to have an investment strategy that is designed to defeat it.
Well, as Barry mentioned, he's got his famed 6 steps to retirement confidence, and he can get you. Is it more of a ladder or more of a staircase?
It's a staircase.
It's a staircase, one step at a time. So get your steps going, folks. Take your steps outside when the weather's nice and stay healthy. That'll help you out in the long run. But get on board with Barry's 6 steps to retirement confidence and get going in 2026 by calling Barry Watts, 417 around Springfield, 200-3500. We're back with some of your questions for Barry. We'll get to that following this message.
Curious about securing your financial future? Barry Watts brings expertise to your retirement plans. Arrange a meeting by texting VISIT to 417-200-3500. Again, it's VISIT to 417-200-3500.
Imagine for a moment that an intense storm is pounding your house. Will your roof leak? Will the siding peel away? Will your basement flood? If your house is properly built and maintained, you'll be fine. But what about your 401k or your investments? The stock market has had a pretty good run the last few years, but is its current turmoil making you feel uneasy? Are you confident your portfolio is built to weather a financial storm? Now may be a great time to get a second opinion on your retirement plan. Call Barry Watts and the team at WealthCare at 417-200-3500 now. They'll examine your portfolio and show you if your investments are in need of some weatherproofing. Call Barry Watts and the team at WealthCare today at 417-200-3500 to get your no-obligation second opinion. Don't let your retirement get caught in the rain. Call 417-200-3500. Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk.
Market volatility can be daunting, but having a strategy in place can provide stability amidst the uncertainty. Consult with us to learn about approaches that address market ups and downs. Call 417-200-3500 to set an appointment and secure your financial footing. Again, just call 417-200-3500.
Time now in the final part of our show. We're into basketball season, and when that buzzer sounds when the clock hits 0, so our time is running for questions from you out there. Barry, here's our first one, and we Ralphs, we have to stick together. This is Ralph in Nixa writing, Barry, I'm 56 right now. I really want to have that $1 million saved before I retire. I'm doing a really good job saving into my 401k, and good for you on that. But I can't ever seem to get very much set aside in cash. How do I do a better job building up my emergency fund?
Well, I simply think you're either going to have to increase your income so you've got some extra money to save, or you're going to have to reduce your spending. And you just have to decide which that is going to be. Now, I would encourage you to set aside a disciplined amount each paycheck and just keep setting aside that amount into your emergency fund until you reach 6 months of income. And that's kind of the number that we tell people that they need to have in their emergency fund. Now, here's an alternative idea, though, that some people can use, and it's this. If you have your home paid for, or you have a lot of equity in your home, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a home equity line of credit set up on your home. I'm not saying go borrow money against your home. I'm saying position yourself so that you could. My running joke is you never know when your son-in-law is going to get arrested and you have to bail him out of jail. So if that happened and you needed money, where are you going to get the money to do that? Well, if you got a home equity line of credit, then you could go take that money out of your home temporarily and use that as an emergency fund. So I like home equity lines of credit. I keep a lot of cash. I usually keep 7 figures in cash, but then I'm running a business and I've got a lot of employees and so forth. On top of that, though, I've got a home equity line of credit on my home. I don't think we've taken any money out of it in 5 years or something.
Oh, good.
And we paid it all off. Of course, you're going to pay this all back, but it's just a ready-made source of capital that's handy.
And friends, when you go to the bank and you ask about it, then it's a HELOC, and you know that, and they'll know that, and ask about a HELOC and get that started. Okay. Randy in Aurora writes, I'm getting remarried in 2026. I have a couple of sons. Yeah, very good, very good. Big changes on the way for Randy. I have 2 sons, and my fiance has 4 children from her first marriage. So it's kind of a Brady Bunch thing we have going on here, Barry. And
here's the story. Of a man named Randy.
That's right.
Who was raising up 2 sons of his own. By the way, did you know Greg Brady lives in Branson?
He's got a place there?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I saw him the other day. I was down at an event there, and he went walking through, and so anyway, there's a little tip for you. Greg lives in Branson. The good thing is everybody on listening to us pretty much knows who Greg Brady is. But if we had Jeremy and Matt in here, they wouldn't know who Greg Brady was probably.
Oh gosh, and you're in good company, Barry. When I was doing a talk show in Topeka, Barry, he said, "Call me Barry." I said, "Okay, call me Barry."
Barry Williams.
Barry Williams was on our show. And we got Susan Olson on the phone, who was Cindy Brady. We had Barry there and Susan Olson on the phone, and the 3 of us had a great chat. So we enjoy that. And anytime I can get a microphone and talk to somebody like you, it's just love. So I'll have to get with Barry. He's in Branson, huh?
He is.
Yeah. Well, Randy, go over and see him. You're going to find out what it's like, buddy. And maybe Barry Williams can give you some advice. But he says, I shouldn't want to hurt their feelings, but I'm not going to split my estate up 6 ways. I want my money and my estate to go to the boys I have, like we've always planned before the remarriage. But to keep the peace, would it make sense, Barry, to get a separate life insurance policy so that her children, who are going to be my stepchildren, could get something also after I'm gone?
Well,
this was not on the Brady Bunch. I don't recall an episode where they did estate planning, but
no,
what's your answer
together? So here's my answer. First of all, good on you for planning in advance. I think that's fabulous.
Yes.
Secondly, I would ask this question: why are you responsible for doing anything for her children? Don't they have a father or an inheritance that they're going to receive that your children won't receive? So I got to tell you this. It seems silly to me that you have to buy a life insurance policy to give to her kids in order to keep the peace. In fact, if this is really a peacekeeping issue, I think you need to think about the path you're going down here. Because if there is the expectation that, you'll give money to my kids already and you haven't even tied the knot yet, boy, it doesn't sound good to me. So my suggestion, at the very least, is that you see a good trust attorney. Maybe that you perhaps even have a prenup. And I don't believe really in prenups. I believe you ought to get married and throw everything in together, particularly the first time around. But when people come together with families and assets that they've spent decades building, it's a different story. And I think a prenuptial agreement might be a good idea in this case.
So I'll get with the attorney on that. All right. This is from Sheila in Springfield. Sheila writing, and Barry, we've discussed long-term care, building it into the plan many times on the show. She's still wondering, I'm worried about getting sick or too old to take care of myself. How do I know, Barry, if I have enough for paying big medical bills?
Well,
how do you know?
Yeah, how do we know? I mean, what's the definition of a big medical bill? You broke your leg or you had to have a heart transplant?
Yeah.
So because quickly the numbers can get astronomical and just blow you out of the water. So here's what I would suggest. I would suggest that you start by having a line item for healthcare in your retirement budget. I'm going to allow this much for healthcare. And by the way, Sheila, you do have a budget, don't you? Well, retirement is for big boys and girls who are responsible adults. And a part of being a responsible adult is having a strategic plan for how you're going to spend in retirement. And you should have a line item for healthcare in your retirement budget. I would encourage you to look into your Medicare supplements or Advantage plans on top of your cost of Medicare itself, and that should all be factored into your retirement income plan. And then you need to think about long-term care options and how you're going to pay for long-term care, whether you do it with traditional long-term care insurance or some of the hybrid kinds of strategies, or maybe you got enough money you can just self-fund it. Now, one of the things that I like in that particular case is what they call life insurance with living benefits, that takes the death benefit and turns it into not something that pays when you die, but it pays while you're living in a nursing home or needing care in your own home. It's a very effective
amazing
strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really helpful. And so that's just some suggestions. I can't tell you whether you got enough because who knows what kind of medical expense you're going to have. But that's the way that we plan for those. And your Medicare and your supplements or Advantage plans hopefully will cover any big medical bills, and you'll be able to make your way satisfactorily.
And plan for that no matter what happens. But, hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Well, my question is, what's Barry's phone number? And the answer is 417-200-3500, 200-3500 to chat with Barry. Well, not being able to ask a lady her age, Barry, Nancy and Aurora asks, I can't keep up with these RMDs, these required minimum distributions. Is it 70 or 73? So when do we have to take those?
Well, you said she's an Aurora. Wasn't Randy a couple of questions back? Wasn't he an Aurora as well?
Yeah, I believe so.
Man,
yeah.
we are booming in Lawrence County, aren't we? How about that?
Are Randy and Nancy, are they in the same house? I don't know.
I don't know, because only if Nancy's a cougar. Because I don't know, because Randy was still raising kids, and whoever he's marrying was raising kids, and Nancy's worried about required minimum distribution. So hopefully she doesn't still have kids in the house if she's doing the required minimum distribution.
That's right.
So we call them RMDs just to make it easy. What this is the government says, if you put money into your IRA account, it's not had the tax paid on it. Eventually, you're going to have to take it out and pay the tax on it. And at a certain age, the government says, we're afraid you're going to die and not pay your taxes, so we want you to get started. And the age at which you have to start making an RMD is going to be 73 if you were born in the 1950s. If you were born in the 1960s, it will be 75. So, Ralph, you're going to have to start taking your RMD out next year. I don't have to take mine out until I turn 75. So I've got another 13 years before I have to worry about it. That will make sure that Uncle Sam gets paid his taxes. And the key is just to plan the RMD into your income strategy so that it doesn't push you into a higher tax bracket. And that's a part of the retirement income planning that we do. We're always managing the income against the taxes to be sure that we don't wind up being forced to pay taxes at a higher rate because the government forced us to take the money when we didn't need it, forced out the amount we were going to take out, forced us into a certain tax bracket, and forced us to pay a certain amount. So all of this is something we take care of for our clients at WealthCare, and your advisor should be doing that for you too. And if they aren't, call us and we will make sure you're taken care of, because taking care of the folks who depend on us, that's what we do at the WealthCare Corporation.
With that holistic approach and those 6 steps to retirement confidence. So get with Barry. And our time is up, Barry, but in our final minute here, I want to remind everybody, do get in touch with Barry and set up that conversation to get things going for 2026. And any final thoughts you have about what people are calling and asking about right now going into the new year?
Well, it's going to be a great new year. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the people we're going to help and the ways that we're going to be able to help them. I want to encourage you, don't be afraid. Step right up. Ask your questions. Get your answers. Let's solve your problems. And let's help you step into retirement confidence.
Let us do that and get started. Friends, hope you had a wonderful holiday and a terrific new year. And on we go. We are at the end of our time here. We can't stop the clock, though, and on we go into 2026. Hope it's a really good one for you, with hopefully some help from Barry Watts. This is Ralph Hipp, and for Barry and his whole team at the WealthCare Corporation, thanks for joining us for the Watts on Wealth radio show, and hope you'll hear us again right here next weekend.
Thank you for stopping by Watts on Wealth. If you would like Barry and his team to help you make a plan to get to and through retirement, or would simply like a second opinion on your current plan, give us a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. And join us again next week for Watts on Wealth.
WealthCare Corporation provides tax strategy, tax compliance, accounting, and insurance services through its affiliate American Tax Strategies, LLC. Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Past performance never guarantees future results. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for information and entertainment purposes only and should not be used as the basis for personal financial decisions without first consulting a qualified advisor. The information and opinions you've heard are believed reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness.